this semester, I have had the pleasure of working with a very dynamic group of interns for the last few months, and I'm here to spill the beans. So first, I'd like to introduce you Safiso. She is probably one of the first people to respond to my emails, complete her tasks on time, and even takes on additional tasks that we secretly think she has to have a doppelganger working for her to complete all her work. Then there is Mohammed. He would always make sure to go out of his way to ensure that he completes his work, interviews as many people as possible, including interviewing his own grandmother. Next is Lindsay. She is willing to do things out of her comfort zone and ensure that the team is working together, even if she has to fit us all in her car every 7:30 a.m. mornings because none of us had a car. Finally, there's Azmin. He is a dedicated and hardworking individual who is extremely creative and always thinks about ideas outside the box. But first, he needs to wake up. On that note, here is the APD team introducing Wheelmates.
Picture yourself as a wheelchair user trying to navigate through an airport. You'd have to pray your wheelchair doesn't get damaged or lost after your flight. As if that's not enough to worry about, you, just like Mr. John Geber, can only hope that the wheelchair transfer process is not as embarrassing as your last one. The poor old man explicitly said that he was lifted up like a sack of potatoes during his wheelchair transfer on his way to Chicago and suffered severe back pain for days after that. It was a traumatic, dehumanizing experience, he says. John isn't the only one. 80% of the wheelchair users we interviewed complained about a similar problem, and this creates the need for Wheelmate, a beacon and belt system that provides a standardized, safe, and comfortable transfer process with tracking and data collection abilities. After conducting over 30 interviews and designing over 5 different prototypes, we finally arrived to this solution. And as a result, we've identified a market of $64 million, developed a business model that identified specific airports to partner with for commercialization, and estimated a $1.75 million profit in the first 5 years. My name is Pisa Kininza, and I'm an electrical engineering junior.
My name is Lindsay Randall, and I'm a biomedical engineering junior.
My name is Mohammed Al-Wahdani, and I'm an electrical engineering junior.
My name is Osman Gishaf, and I'm a mechanical engineer sophomore.
And together we are Team Wheelmate. Now this semester, we've had the honor of participating in an airport competition funded by the Federal Aviation Administration. This competition challenges teams of students to consider innovative approaches on airport issues, and the FAA will provide funding for pilot testing. We were tasked with designing a product and commercialization strategy to improve the traveling experience of elderly passengers in US airports. Our initial approach was exploring various ideas within visual impairments and mobility, but after some thorough research, we were able to narrow it down to 2 major problems. From our interviews and research, we found that passenger mishandling and tracking assets are major issues of concern pertaining airport wheelchairs. Mr. John Geber and several other interviewees expressed their frustration with unstandardized wheelchair transfer processes and never knowing what to expect. Transfers require lots of upper body movement for both the person using a wheelchair and the airport staff assisting with the transfer, resulting in long-term health effects. In fact, over 52% of caregivers complain about chronic back pain and upper limb injuries due to transfers. The current transfer method used in airports is rather undignified, embarrassing, and violates personal space, especially for the passenger being transferred. Now, Dr. Di Fires, who is the president of Quadrex Aviation, confirmed this during an interview. Dr. Fisher, who's been a nurse for over 25 years, also emphasized the importance of treating a person with dignity during a transfer process. Now, inventory tracking is another problem that airports are faced with, especially in terms of theft, bottlenecks, and maintenance. The US Transportation Department reported 913 complaints about lost, mishandled, and damaged wheelchairs in US airports in December of 2019 alone. 60% of interviewees using wheelchairs complained about often being stuck in a certain part of the airport, such as waiting for a staff member to push them to their gate, for example. And last but not least, there's a lack of efficient maintenance systems, specifically for wheelchair repairs. Philip, who is an attendant at the Dallas airport, said the airport currently doesn't have systems to detect and fix problematic wheelchairs. They only realize these problems when they're beyond repair and wheelchairs need to be replaced with new ones. Now, because of all these problems, we have formulated what would be an ideal solution by taking specific user needs into consideration.
We have chosen to address some of the challenges previously discussed with our proposed solution, Wheelmate. Wheelmate is a 2-unit system consisting of a belt for wheelchair transfers and an easy access storage unit featuring beacon tracking technology that will attach directly to the back of the wheelchair. We created this prototype using a human-centered design process and with the intent that the device can be used efficiently, hygienically, and safely within the context of an airport-style environment. When a potential user is in need of a wheelchair transfer, an airport personnel member can quickly and easily remove the belt portion of Wheelmate from the storage unit on the back of the wheelchair. The belt will weigh about half a pound and can reach a maximum circumference of 60 inches at full extension. The belt can then be placed around the waist of the person sitting in the wheelchair, buckled in place, and tightened to a safe degree thanks to the belt's adjustable strap, which can accommodate passengers of a wide variety of sizes and needs. This tightening process can be done safely and comfortably to prevent the belt from slipping during the transfer, thanks to the belt's padded interior to provide sufficient padding to ensure the comfort of the user. The airport personnel can then grab onto 2 of the belt's 4 strategically placed handles, 2 on the sides and 2 on the back, to start the formal wheelchair transfer. One of our interviewees, Dr. Fisher, who has facilitated dozens of wheelchair transfers, said it best. No 2 wheelchair transfers are alike, and by including multiple grip access points, we allow the wheelchair attendant to choose the grip configuration that is best suited for their safety. Once the wheelchair transfer has been completed, the belt will be returned to the storage unit before the wheelchair is returned to storage. Airports want to ensure that their wheelchairs are all accounted for and local, and the beacon technology on Wheelmate will help to ensure that wheelchairs are not lost or stolen. The beacon will be programmed such that if the lift mate moves outside the airport perimeter, an alarm will sound, and an airport personnel member will be notified of the asset's location. Finally, the Wheelmate belt and storage units are made of materials that can be easily and thoroughly cleaned before their next usage to ensure the safety and hygiene of all Wheelmate users. The belt is designed to have a use life of at least 5 years with little to no maintenance besides washing, and the beacon will be pre-programmed and will only require charging once every 3 months. Wheelmate's features make it a strong contender in the applicable markets that we plan to penetrate, and Mohammed will discuss this element in greater detail.
Wheelmate can reach a $64 million market by targeting airports and expanding to nursing homes. The total available market in the United States is $216 million. That consists of 3.6 million wheelchair users. 30% of those users use wheelchairs only in airports and nursing homes. Other than the fact that we are participating in a competition for improving airports, we decided to target airports because of their needs and for reasons we believe our product will succeed in such market. The needs are the top 3 boxes under the word airports, while the reasons for success are the 3 after. First, there are 500,000 passengers who are both aged above 65 years old and who need assistance in wheelchair transfers. There is also a need for a standardized and dignified wheelchair transfer process. Here, we're talking about the need from the airport management perspective, rather than the older passengers. For instance, each hour of wheelchair handling costs airports $40. And also, over half of the 800 complaints against American Airlines received last year from passengers with disabilities came from being mishandled or embarrassed when assisted. There is also a huge need for data tracking. Over 5,000 wheelchairs were lost or damaged due to the lack of regular maintenance. Our product has a great potential to succeed in the airport industry. It will be used an average time of it will be used an average of 6 times per person per year, so it won't be deemed unnecessary. The estimated market is huge, as it is around $30 million. And finally, the growth in the related expenditure is 8% annual. If our product is successful, we will then expand to nursing homes. Nursing homes have very similar needs to the airport market. Furthermore, the frequency of the usage is significantly higher, as it will be used around 16 times per user per day, and the market is estimated to be at around $34 million. We then looked into existing solutions out there, and it's obvious that they lack key features that Wheelmate provide, such as data tracking and an improved wheelchair transfer process. When I say an improved wheelchair transfer process, I mean a standardized, comfortable, dignified, safe, and sanitary one. The current system in place where you can check out a wheelchair in person or electronically, then get pushed, provides almost no attention to the transfer process. Also, there is no real-time data being tracked about the location of the wheelchair. Another existing solution would be a traditional gate belt. Traditional gate belts provide a standardized and safe process, yet it is not as comfortable as it should be. They also have no data tracking abilities. Wheelmate provides an improved transfer process. It is a rethought user-centered gate belt. It also has real-time data tracking abilities that the airport industry critically needs. When it comes to cost, the current system doesn't impose any direct additional costs. However, there are numerous hidden ongoing losses, whether as broken or lost inventory, or as lawsuits or lost customers. A traditional gate belt costs around $20 and would pose somewhat a mediocre improvement to the current system. Wheelmate would be a better investment. It's a mildly pricier solution that would provide real solutions to all the aforementioned problems. Now, let's walk you through our business plan and explain how Wheelmate will get from us to the end users.
Wheelmate can easily be brought to market through a few simple steps. We will start our market push with a pilot phase that will begin with our collaboration with the Office of Technology Commercialization, or OTC, here at OU. Once we disclose our product, they will help us obtain patents such as design patents for the belt and storage unit, as well as obtaining protections for our product. We will then seek to license Wheelmate from OTC for a proposed 30% of profits. After we have obtained the rights to manufacture Wheelmate, we will process through the regulatory and grant funding application process, which will involve a Class II FDA exemption and grant funding through the FAA Airport Improvement Project, or AIP, which will cover 75 to 90% of the pilot phase costs incurred by the airport. We will license Wheelmate to an established wheelchair manufacturer and supplier, such as Invacare, for a fixed fee and 20% sales price for the expected 50 pilot phase units. Invacare will then deliver Wheelmate to the OKC airport, and we will assess the viability of Wheelmate in an airport environment for at least 6 months. Once the pilot phase has proved the efficacy of our product, we will progress to the next phase of production on a larger scale. We will continue the pilot phase approach of licensing Wheelmate to established vendors while prioritizing strategic vendors that supply multiple and/or larger airports. We anticipate licensing Wheelmate to manufacturers for a fixed fee that is proportional to the size of the airports that the vendor supplies, along with 20% of the sales price and auditing rights. Now, Asmine will go into greater detail about some of the financial implications of this business model.
Wheelmate has the potential to generate minimum profit of $1.7 million over the first 5 years of its existence. Breaking the years down, the first year will be completely dedicated to research and development. The product will not generate any revenue, but it will incur a cost of $75,000, which will be covered by grants. This is represented on the graph on the left. During the pilot stage, we will disperse 50 units in the OKC airport. This airport is an ideal airport because of its size and accessibility. The product will be introduced to the market in the second year at a price of $60 per unit. We will reach out to 10 airports and provide 250 units in average to each airport. Selling these 250 units at $60 per unit will help us break even in the second year. From there, we will increase the number of airports reached by 2.5 times every consecutive year. The projected units sold each year is represented at the bottom of the graph. The graph also shows the revenue and cost generated in each year. A simple calculation of revenue minus cost will reveal the profit, which will be shared between us and our partners. Reaching out to partners and more airports is the key to expanding our market. There is already a huge market existing. But first we have to take some necessary steps. We have to finish some competition requirements, which will be filling out the form. Moreover, we have to do some experiments in the laboratory to ensure our product is safe to use. And then we'll move on to OKC Airport and introduce the product to test it in real life. After we have done our piloting stage in the first year, we'll move on, and after finalizing the product, we'll partner with manufacturers and start selling the product to other airports. The next steps would be reaching out to more airports in order to extend the market, but that won't be enough for us. Once we have ensured our success, we will extend to nursing home, as mentioned earlier, and in order to do that, we need to modify our product to meet the new environment. This is to ensure that our product is completely successful. Thank you for listening to our presentation, and I open the floor for questions.
We have a question from our Facebook live stream. So the first question, what specifically makes this hygienic? I'm sure airports will have heightened concerns post-pandemic.
So I'll answer this question. Our prototype will primarily be hygienic based off of the materials that it's made out of, as well as the design configuration, which will be easily cleaned due to the materials and the structure of the prototype itself.
The next question is from Braden Conrad. Have airports expressed a need to reduce bottlenecks?
I'll take the question. Yes, airports have expressed the need to reduce bottlenecks. So when I spoke to Philip from the Dallas airport, he indicated that airports are fully aware of various bottlenecks that occur, especially reducing customer waiting times. He also indicated that although airports have been actively working on finding the best solution for these bottlenecks, they haven't really come to a conclusion on what would work best. And so with our product WillMate, we're helping to reduce waiting times, especially for passengers using wheelchairs, by implementing software that monitors how long a wheelchair has been waiting at a specific location, for example.
Thank you. And then Fiwo asks, why did you choose this particular problem to address?
So we chose this problem because we are passionate about increasing accessibility for people living with mobility issues, especially in unfamiliar environments such as airports. Of course, it also aligns with the expectations of the competition, but wheelchair transfers and asset tracking are particular areas that stood out the most to us. And the feedback we received from our interviewees made it a viable problem to dive into and to address. Of course, again, we're all engineers in this team, so we strongly believe that technology is a strong driving tool to solve efficiency problems such as asset tracking.
Our next question is from Trey Havens on Facebook Live. Does the in-airport testing window account for rush seasons like Thanksgiving and Christmas? Did you consider fluctuations in demand and use throughout the year?
I'll take that question. We have taken that into account in terms that we have seen how many attendants are available at the same time in an airport, and we have made a one-to-one ratio to that and the wheelchair that are available.
Thank you. And we have time for one more question. Our question will be from Michael Asanti. What does the data tracking exactly do? Will there be any situations where it needs to be HIPAA compliant for privacy and security?
I'll take that question. So the essential reason why we're using a beacon is because a beacon can show you the geolocational data on a server without showing much more, without exposing more of the privacy of the users. And the technology essentially will satisfy three functions. Number one, it will say if a product is being misplaced outside the airport. Number two, it will say if a product is in a specific bottleneck area. And number three, every time the product is used, that will like keep on counting until you hit a specific threshold, and then you need to go to a regular maintenance check. So that's what that technology will do.
Great, thank you, team.